Hi, I'm Joy Williams, and I am the co-executive director of Hope to Thrive.
And I am Carol Wilson, and I am the church administrator for Grace Presbyterian Church, which has a United Way Place Matters grant program of healthy eating initiative.
For many of you, you have heard a lot about what has been happening here in the Butterfield Carver School area neighborhood since COVID. A lot of people, a lot of partnerships have come out to help distribute food, pick up food, and give it to families, to give it to group homes. And a lot of people recognize Hope to Thrive through a recent grant that we got from the Black Philanthropy Initiative, which is an initiative of the Winston Salem Foundation. But what many people do not know is how we got started within this work. And so I've invited Carol Wilson from Grace Presbyterian Church to really talk about the work that they have been doing for years within this neighborhood under United Way. And I'm excited for Carol to be able to share more about what that grant is and the partnerships that make that happen for them, and how we are able to expand to many other families post COVID and the beautiful community that we have formed. So, Carol, thank you again for being able to share this part of the story, which is so very important. And could you share again, maybe a little bit deeper about what the United Way is exactly? And could you unpack a little bit about what Place Matters is and that that phrasing?
So, United Way of Forsyth County is a nonprofit agency that provides funding and resources to the community. And underneath the regular United Way program is what's called the Place Matters um, grant program. And Place Matters involves 13 neighborhoods that are in the East Winston area. And it's really based on that particular area doing asset-based community development, and they provided grants to organizations so that we could provide the services that have been identified by the residents that live in these communities. And the residents actually lead these particular programs. They have done their, like I said, it's an asset-based community. So they have already reviewed and decided that these are the things that would best help their community continue to develop and grow in ways that benefit the residents. And so from the couple of things, there was a study that was done by the mayor's committee. And from that, certain areas were identified, and the Place Matters began back in 2016 with a number of agencies that applied for funding based on information that they've received from residents for services that they thought would be appropriate. And there were a number of categories, but the category that Grace chose is actually two. There's a program we do called the JRAMS, which is a mentorship program from Carver High School to WSSU students. But the one we're talking about today is our program called the Healthy Eating Initiative. So the Healthy Eating Initiative basically gets fresh fruits and vegetables from our partner, Crisis Control Ministry, that we then make available to the residents. And we also promote community gardening so that what they have been missing and what has been unavailable in terms of their food resources and really miss to make them healthy and to promote lifelong living were the fruits and the vegetables, which can be expensive, which can be difficult sometimes in terms of preparation. How long can you keep it? And all of those things. So that's what the Healthy Eating Initiative is about. It is about serving within the Place Matters area through community gardening and providing the fresh fruits and vegetables on a weekly basis to the community. There is a garden at Carver High School that is run by Mr. Christopher Jeffords and students there. It is an in-ground as well as an above-ground garden. And they have worked on this for the last 4 years, going into their fifth year, where the students are actually learning about gardening. And they are producing a harvest each season. And even last season, they went a step further. Not only did they plant and harvest, and then they give it away to the community, but they developed a hot sauce. So the students bottled it up, they gave a name to it. So they are learning to be entrepreneurs as well as provide healthy eating produce and things to the neighborhood. We work very closely with Ladera Crest community as well. They also have a 9-bed garden, and we work with both their youth, especially during this pandemic as they began to work with students during the daytime. But generally, before the pandemic, we worked with their after-school program where they would also plant and harvest. And they would then make recipes out of what they harvested out of the garden.
Carol, you do a tremendous amount of work. Like as you were talking about the healthy eating initiative and the produce, I was remembering conversations we have had about your background in dietetics and your interest in nutrition and how that is carried over into the produce and the recipes that you offer people. Could you talk a little bit more about where the produce comes from and the specific fruits and vegetables that may be new and how you bridge that gap?
So, and I'd love to give an example, even like today. So, we get a lot of our produce. Most of it comes from Crisis Control Ministry, and their produce is coming from Trader Joe's. It's coming also from Food Lion. And what we do is once we get it, we bring it back and we set it up. So, they're very common foods that we're all familiar with in terms of fruits and vegetables. Most of us know grapes, and most of us know strawberries. And in terms of vegetables, most of us know, let's say, the collard greens, or we'll know spinach and even broccoli. But what we get from Crisis Control Ministry is just such a mixture of all fruits and vegetables. So we get all forms of squash. We get all types of fruits. And what it has been is eye-opening for some who said, well, how do you cook this? How do you prepare this? How do you even peel? Do you eat the peeling? What do you do with it? And we've been able to kind of, once we get an abundance of something, to share with people, okay, so this is the name of this particular fruit or vegetable. This is how you would cook it. This is how you can prepare it. Can you eat it raw? Does it have to be cooked? And when I said an example of people understanding where fruits and vegetables come from, how they're grown, today when I was over at Ladera Crest and we were planting today for the new season, and I said, we were just planting strawberries because they're very familiar with strawberries and they're kind of easy to grow. One of the students said, can we plant apples? And I said, okay, so apples are grown on trees in a grove. You can't have a garden of apples. So them understanding the difference between what grows in a garden and what grows in a grove was another thing, because then they kicked out pineapples. So just helping them understand the food sources, where they come from, what you can actually grow in a garden and what you have to grow in a grove on trees is really enlightening to them. But they are always so enthusiastic about getting into the soil and digging and then watching things grow. So I know at Ladera Crest, some of the things we will grow, because they said watermelon. They know that watermelons grow in the garden, and they are so looking forward to that, and sunflower seeds.
Awesome. About how many students are working at the Carver School, and then about how many at Ladera Crest? And is there any crossover?
So at the Carver High School, there are probably 6 consistent students that are working that particular garden. And I say 6 consistent for a number of years as they're going up through the grade levels, and then some others are coming in, but consistently there's at least 6 of those. And there's not a lot of crossover, number one, because for reasons of transportation, those that are at the Carver High School and that we're able to work with them there on site at that school, we cannot necessarily reach over to Ladera Crest, which is not significantly more than 4 miles away, but there's not that connection that we have the Ladera Crest high school students working in that garden. We have mostly the 7th and under grade levels at the Ladera Crest. And the Ladera Crest, so during the COVID-19, they opened up their doors to school learning during the daytime, e-learning. And those students, they had around 20 of those students that became participated in the fall just a little bit with gardening as we worked through the pandemic. But as we're going into the spring, they now have not only that e-learning group, but they also have an after-school group, again, that has just started back. So that particular number of students at Ladera Crest right now, I'm going to say is more between 11 and like 18 students that are there helping in the garden. And currently, there are a lot more young men for the first time, and they are in like the um, fourth through, I'm going to say maybe sixth or seventh grade,
That's
which we're really
awesome.
working it out today in terms of preparing the garden beds.
I'm also remembering times during the pantry during COVID where you have put recipe cards, like some of the off the beaten path vegetables and fruits that people may not know could be some of the vegetables would be chayote or some of the avocados, like seeing it in its raw form, and the fruits like papaya. Um, and I remember one participant who just raved about the recipe that you gave her for spaghetti squash that you had just sitting there. And I quote, "You changed my life," was the quote that she said. And I sent that video to you, but I think we should post it and let other people see like the impact of what crisis control is partnering with Trader Joe's and Food Lion, some of the other places they may be getting, to which the United Way of Forsyth County is then funding Grace to help distribute to the families that need it in communities that need it, like Ladera Crest. Do you want to say a little bit more about the setup that you all have created within Grace and how that has maneuvered um, since COVID?
So Grace has been doing the Healthy Eating Initiative since 2017, actively in the community. And Grace would take the produce that we receive from crisis control, and we would actually go to those communities, Ladera Crest. We would actually go to the Recreation Center, Carl Russell. We would go to the Salvation Army on New Walkertown Road, and we would then set up like an outside market, and we would go ahead and let people select their produce. And we find it's really important that people select their produce because they know what they're going to eat and they know what they're going to prepare. We do encourage them and try to get them to do new and different things, as Joy said, using recipes and showing them how to cook and prepare things, especially before the pandemic. We could actually do cooking experiences with them, and we did. But since COVID, we've not been able to do that. And they would go ahead and take that produce and prepare it and share it and come back with how they felt about it and how they incorporated something new or different into it that way. So as we fell into COVID and most of these places shut down in terms of the way people moved, we then found that we still wanted to be able to provide people with healthy foods, especially during a pandemic, because we wanted them to build up their immune system. And one way of doing that is eating healthy fruits and vegetables. So we were able to, once crisis control opened back up for us to receive, we found that we could distribute it from Grace, which meant we lost some of the population that does not have transportation. And that was one of the big things that we were concerned about because, especially as COVID came out, you could, if you were on public transportation or if you were riding in someone else's car, it kind of put you at jeopardy. So we did bring it to Grace and we set it up within our fellowship hall to have an area where people could still come in. We were being cautious and how we would take temperatures and how we record things for who was visiting on that day. And people could walk around and actually shop again and get the produce and to do that. And we've been doing that since April of last year. Working it on Tuesdays is when we do it. And then Grace was doing it on the second and fourth Thursdays and the fifth Thursday of the month, because that's when we get our supplies from crisis control. And then Joy picks up from Food Lion on the first and third Thursday. So that is consistently on the Tuesdays and Thursdays of the month that we are able to provide produce.
So there's one other thing that I want you to talk about because it has your nutrition focus, because it's not just about introducing produce or something new. There are cultural exchanges. There are the education surrounding how fruits and vegetables are grown, but there's also a disease prevention model that you feel very strongly about in order to shape exactly what this is for the community, because you have opportunities of getting cakes and donuts and all these other things that goes to the pantry, but because of the disease prevention, that really shapes what actually makes it into the pantry and then what's given out. And then can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So Joy's right that our emphasis is strictly the healthy eating. So we stick with that produce, fresh produce that we are able to share. And we do limit the amount of sugary sweets that we get, but that are available. And we talk with our individuals about the importance of incorporating into their diet these particular foods. Whether we use the 5 a day model or we use the healthy eating plate from our former First Lady Michelle Obama, um, to help them incorporate a lot more fresh fruits and vegetables into their diet that will help them in terms of disease prevention and also maintaining healthy status, especially if they are diabetic, because there's a number of people in our community that are diabetic, and working with them on alternatives, and helping people to maintain a healthy weight in terms of their progression with disease, to stop that and to put them onto healthier ways. And especially with the young children, getting them to recognize and starting to eat healthy earlier, which will help them with a help them for lifelong living. And again, just going back today, as I've really gotten back with my youth over at Ladera Crest, and I had water for them. And one of the guys said, "Can you bring us bigger water bottles? Because like we used to drink soda, but you told us don't drink that anymore. So I need a bigger bottle than this 8 ounce." And I was like, "I just need to get you some water bottles so that you can continue to fill it."
That
So
is
yeah.
awesome. I've learned a lot from you in talking about the shaping of disease prevention, like that model. Like we both have a public health nutrition background. I never thought about going into dietetics like you, however. But even when the hot meals started, I would love for you to talk a little bit about how you were particular about what was included about it within the hot meals that the communities that you served with the healthy eating initiative also received, because I think that's such a beautiful part of the story.
So one of the things we noticed during the pandemic was that we were no longer doing the cooking portion of the healthy eating and able to give them meals and to show how you could take these things and incorporate a meal. And we found out also that, in the beginning of the COVID pandemic, was that it was really hard for people to be able to shop and get what was needed because there was such a shortage on things at the grocery stores. There was like a run. So unless you have the kind of capital that lets you go and really stock up on food items, you were left with maybe not so much. And we began to feed meals on Fridays to cover the weekend to assist and help families. And one of the things about the meals was we wanted them to be healthy meals. So we asked for protein items because we know that this particular culture really likes the protein items, but we also insisted, but we need vegetables. And the vegetables we need are the non-starchy. So we don't need corn or necessarily always green beans, but broccoli, cauliflower, incorporating these other vegetables for them to eat as well, and to utilize within their diet from especially dark green leafy, which has a lot more vitamin C in it, as well as fiber and other minerals for them to have these meals that were prepared and had these different healthy foods in them that they could eat. And then, they could go ahead and they could then imitate that and incorporate that into their weekly meals.
Mhm. I remember that the meals, there were two vegetables and a meat and a protein. And the protein was usually a chicken, but you also wanted it to be diverse. And so sometimes there was meatloaf or there was, um, I don't know, what else? Maybe um, I'm forgetting about some of the other protein items, but you
We
even
did
had,
beef and we did like a
yeah,
spaghetti kind
yeah.
of thing
Mhm.
once before to incorporate things they're familiar with, as well as things that we were saying, well, try this prepared differently this way.
Yeah.
Uh,
And having a green leafy vegetable, because of the research, like having 2 cups 2 cups of greens a day actually helps reduce the risk of some of what's prevalent within these populations, like cancer and, like you said, diabetes. And so having that focus I thought was brilliant, and being able to work with the restaurant owners to ensure that was such a gift. And even having some of the residents choose what kind of meals that they wanted, and just really getting the community buy-in. Can you talk a little bit about how you engage the community to have them a part of the decision-making process of whether it was the meals or the produce? Like, you talked a little bit about them, which, let me just stop and say, is actually really novel to have people shop for their own produce, because there's so many pantries where you're giving a box or a bag and then you're left to figure out what in that can you actually use. So that in itself is an innovative idea of working out a pantry. What are some of the other methods that show up that may be different, or just what you do? Because you may not know what other people are doing to know that it's different. But
So we ask people before we plant even, okay, so what is it you would like to plant? And not talking about just my young children who like the trees, but older adults who say, you know what, I'm really used to eating this. And a couple times someone has said, you know, my doctor has really recommended that I eat more of this, and maybe we could plant this. And one of them was onions. She said, my doctor recommended I eat more onions. And I was like, okay, I'm not really quite familiar with maybe the the connection for that for you and your physician, but if that's what you'd like to eat more of because he's recommended it, then we can plant onions. So yeah, so making sure that people understand that the garden is theirs, and what we plant um, really should reflect the kinds of things that they are used to eating, would like to eat. And then I just throw in a couple of, well, let's try and plant this and see how it grows, to see that happening. As far as um, I'm trying to think, in terms of other healthy initiatives that we continue to work with them on is, like I said, and this will be coming back, and it's a big part, and that is food preparation. What actually do you need for food preparation? So in terms of seasoning, we like to plant a lot of herbs and get them to use the fresh herbs, because they're easy to grow. They're easily to transfer. They can do potted plants of herbs at their own homes to utilize and do that. And that gets them pulled away from seasoning with salt, um, and gets them using the other herbs and spices and things within their food, that will flavor it. Because there's so much more than just salt to flavor food.
yay. Is there anything else that you think that people would be interested in knowing, or would want to know, or should know about what's happening with the Healthy Eating Initiative with Grace?
I think that it's important to know that when people come and they shop, that they do take what they are familiar with. They will ask questions what they're not familiar with, and that they are not excessive in what they take. They realize that it's fresh produce, that it will expire within a number of days, or by the end of the week, so that they will take and share. And they have been a great resource to the community to say that this is where I get my fresh fruits and vegetables from. And you definitely need to visit the Healthy Eating Pantry to get your fresh fruits and vegetables, because it's readily available, for you to get what will see you through the week and supply that those nutrients and things for you from produce. Well, I'd like to thank Joy for being committed and assisting us as we had to revamp and revise our healthy eating during the pandemic. That she has been able to come through and really help to broaden the pantry, and to bring volunteerism into that. So I thank you, Joy, for that. I ask that as you hear this, if you are available on Tuesdays between 12:30 and 2, or a Thursday at 2:30 p.m., to please come by and visit the Healthy Eating Initiative Pantry with lots of fresh fruits and vegetables. You can find out more on our website, which is gracewinstonchurch.org.
And the address is 3901 Carver School Road, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, 27105. And I am Joy Williams, the co-executive director of Hope to Thrive. And you can find us at www.hope2, the number 2, hope2thrive.com. We're also on Instagram and Facebook as Hope, the number two, Thrive, Hope to Thrive. So thank you all for listening. Thank you, Carol, for the excellent partnership and all of the beautiful ideas and really focusing on disease prevention. And it's not just about meeting the immediate need, but trying to really go deeper into the homes and the community of this area. So there's more to come, y'all. So stay tuned.